Welcome, data people. We are Zuma. My name is Matt, and this is the Data for Good podcast. This podcast is brought to you by Zuma. Zuma is a dedicated recruitment company focusing on data positions across Berlin. The Data for Good podcast is for the world of data science, analytics, and engineering, giving you a platform to hear the thoughts and opinions of data leaders from Berlin and beyond. Today, we are joined by Machado, Data Science Manager at GetYourGuide and an active member in the MLOps community. Jean, welcome. How are you?
Hey, Matt. I'm good. Thank you for the invitation. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, great to have you on. For those who don't know, give us a little bit of background to yourself.
Sure. So I'm Brazilian, living in Berlin now for 5 years. As you said, a data science manager in GetYourGuide in the growth data products team. I've been in GetYourGuide in these 5 years in diverse roles. I'm also currently one of the leads of the machine learning platform team in GetYourGuide. Back in time, I studied software engineering. That's my background. I studied actually in 2010. I started university and was one of these first kind of round of free universities in Brazil that happened. And there was a wave of new schools during Lula's kind of left-wing government. Yeah. And not only me, but my parents also during that time, they got their free education. So I think without that, I wouldn't be here today. And so makes me really proud of it and something that I'd like to highlight as well.
Yeah, very, very powerful. Education should be for everyone. And it's great to hear that that project allowed you to pursue such a great career. And now you are in heading up a very relevant topic. We are in MLOps. A lot of people, it is unknown what actually MLOps is. So yeah, if you could break it down for us, what is MLOps?
Sure. So MLOps means machine learning operations. And why it's different than machine learning, one might ask, I think is nice to start from there. So with machine learning, you have a bunch of data and you want to produce some insights. You create a model with that data and you have your insights. That's a one-shot process, let's say, right? Well-defined process. MLOps becomes relevant once you want to turn this process continuous. So like I have new data flowing in every day or every second, and I have a model that I want to keep refreshing with this new data and learning. And so it becomes suddenly a system that needs to be basically cared for, maintained. It can break. There are a couple of concerns then that they relate with software engineering, with data engineering, and with data science that becomes relevant once you want a product to basically run all the time. And it could be really at scales that are very kind of hard to comprehend, even like hundreds of thousands of requests per second and everything changing, and you have to keep basically a system working in these conditions. That's basically when MLOps enter the scene, and then with a couple of like practices that one needs to basically take into account, and that's MLOps basically.
A lot of people will be aware of DevOps. So where is it similar? What kind of best practices are involved?
Yeah, great question. I mean, it's the ops part of MLOps comes from the same root. It relates to DevOps, and there is huge overlap. But as much as there is overlap, there is distinctions. There are things that are particular to machine learning that if you would apply like standard DevOps practices, you would be missing a lot of the specific requirements of machine learning. So for instance, there is, in DevOps, you have code versioning. In MLOps, you also have code versioning, but you have model versioning. And that's a new requirement and that has to be taken into account. In general, the day one might, I think, makes sense to that these topics will join more and more in the future, because every engineer will start learning more and more about data science, machine learning, because will become like a standard piece of technology to be applied on basically any kind of system. So I think they will kind of join in the future more and more, but at the current state, it's good to distinguish between them, because otherwise in DevOps, you would not take into account all these requirements from MLOps.
That's it. Why do you think now, why is MLOps having a sudden rise in popularity?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, there is actually, I've been involved in the very kind of early days in MLOps, and I think that was also very helpful for me. Like I saw this coming maybe 3 years ago when Demetrius Brickman starts talking about MLOps community. And there was this amazing podcast that I always recommend, where he talks about MLOps. I think more than 23 years now, and so I think this happened because of, the tools. It was clear that there is this tooling effect, that things are getting easier and easier to ship, and like big companies are also like making open their developments, and the academia side also making lots of progress with deep learning and so on. So there's a lot of and also like the advent of like the data warehouse, where you have very good patterns in place that allow to really take machine learning to the next productionalization level, things that was only possible before in Google and in other big tech companies become suddenly much more kind of accessible. And then the community kind of arose. I feel like it's nothing new that we are doing. These folks in Google were doing 10 years before, but now suddenly it becomes accessible for many other companies to start doing as well.
Yeah, it's accessible is the main word there. A lot more people are able to take part. It's going from strength to strength, and what a time to be involved within MLOps. And fantastic, you've already been had a taste of it for 2 to 3 years. So with this rise in popularity, we're going to lead to even more data science projects. And when onboarding data science projects, there's a lot of things you have to take into consideration. One of those is obviously the systematic approach. So talk to us about the systematic approach you'd use for machine learning.
Sure. Yeah. I think one of the biggest successes we had in GetYourGuide in this space was with the creation of the machine learning platform. This was a joint effort involving many stakeholders. Some very important to mention would be Theodore Menyard, like we kind of developed much of it. He's a data scientist, and I came from the engineering background, and kind of we joining forces there. We basically created like a series of templates that allows one to start with a fully working system, a machine learning project. So you type a series of commands there, and it gives you a system that you just need to change to basically put your machine learning project into production. So I think there is a lot of, in the systematic approach, there is a lot of automation one can do to really kind of make it easy and lower the barrier to get started. And after the creation of the platform as an initiative, we also kickstarted the machine learning platform team. So a dedicated team to just think about how to take this idea further, and like how to increase the amount of data products we have in production. Yes, we found a couple of automation topics, a couple of resiliency topics also. This data processing production, they can go wrong, right? There are so many ways that things can go wrong. Data can be wrong, code can be wrong, so many variables. And so you need also to think about how to systematize the quality assessment or the constraints around quality, data privacy, and so on that you have in your systems. So yeah, we've continuously work into this, and we feel there is very much kind of opportunities in this area to bring more and more data science projects available faster and with more quality, basically.
Awesome. And for a machine learning platform, how does that differ from a data platform and maybe even a software platform?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say that a data platform is a requirement for a machine learning platform. Or that was our strategy. Maybe it's not the requirement. Somebody can start differently, but then you have to care for so many topics. Like if you have a data platform, you can start at a different abstraction kind of level, and basically also once you have like issues around data, you have your experts to consult and to give you new ideas, and you just build on top what is differential. The same applies to like a software platform. We've built our machine learning platform on top also of like our kind of CI system in the company, and like our productionalizing Kubernetes cluster in the company, using the teams that are already doing this for kind of normal software projects. And just rely on those interfaces, so we don't have to invent those things again. So that was very helpful also for us to be able to ship something ready in very short amount of time. Basically, if you have, everybody starting a new ML platform, I would highly recommend to, especially with low amounts of people, to basically rely on these interfaces and in the other teams of your company that are already doing much of the work.
So you're really not isolating yourselves as an ML team. You're utilizing the great resources you've already got in the company and almost developing on top of those to get where you are now. Have I got that right?
Exactly. Yeah, total.
And for those who aren't in the engineering side, what kind of examples are there of maybe consumer or users of a machine learning in production in the real world?
What are users, or like you mean use cases? Or
yes, use cases. Yeah.
Yes. All right. Yes. I mean, there are a couple of examples in GetYourGuide, for instance. We have different domains. There is like the marketplace domain. There is the marketing domain. Each one of those take different data products. In the marketplace, for instance, we have the activity ranking problem, and there we have a real-time re-ranker, which is one of my favorite projects. They basically, for each activity card you see in the platform, that those that appear, they were kind of ranked with like latest available data, so to show things that are most relevant for the customer. And that's, for instance, one of our data products. There is a model that ranks the activities. Another model that we have in the growth domain, for instance, is how to, with generative kind of AI, how to generate aliases for locations that we can then basically feed our paid marketing accounts, for instance. So, or like how to calculate a likely to sell out of an activity. There are a couple of like projects like this, and I mean, these are very mature ones already, and there's many others that are running in production actually.
Awesome. It's always good to see the real world use cases of what all these, especially the ML platform is working on. So that's a systematic approach. Another approach, and probably could be even more important, is people. So how do we tackle this and onboard people into these ever-growing data science projects?
Yes, excellent question. I mean, we are always in the process of figuring that out, but it's something that we actively also work into the ML platform. One of our initiatives is to really work our documentations and our defaults well, so that people that approach us and have shown a lot of interest, they could onboard themselves. We believe a lot in self-service, so we also produce a lot of videos, for instance, so people can basically just jump in and use the platform on their own. Beyond that, yes, we have recurrent things. It's important you listen to the people that are around you. We started very focused with the ML platform into data scientists and engineers working into these data products, but we see also like more and more other parts of the organization. For instance, analytics they also have data products. So we are also kind of running a pilot with them and figuring out what is missing so that we make it really more accessible. And I have one example of sometimes very small things like in our machine learning templates, they are mostly in Python, and just in the way we speak in our documentation, sometimes we assume things that are normal for Python users, that is just a total gap for a person who has not that background. And so we need to fill this gap. So it takes a lot of like sitting with them and figuring out in the first iterations what's missing, but hopefully over time we kind of systematize this and automate it in videos and so on that people can onboard themselves.
And there's no getting away from the shortage of talent within the data domain. What kind of steps, I mean, the documentation is an obvious one. What other steps have you been trying to do to make it as accessible to maybe non-data people or not as technical people?
I mean, we have the whole community part of the conversation that, I mean, we are organizing the MLOps community Berlin, for instance, where we try to bring people in and like if they have interest. Couple of meetups we organize and conference and so on. But I think also people who are getting into kind of this stack, they have to kind of prove their interest first also, right? So I think the community and doing some pet projects on your own kind of it's a great way to get started. But then if you want to jumping into kind of a more kind of data products in production kind of topic, you prove a little bit your track record, and then you find much easier basically to also get started into the systems.
It'd be great to cover more about the community work and specifically the community work within MLOps. So what's available in Berlin?
Well, in Berlin there's so many things, but I'm aware of a set of it. In the MLOps community, we have this quarterly based meetup. The next one will be in June 29.
Okay.
We are doing it also in partnership with as a pre-event for actually another conference, which is the Women in Data and AI conference or festival. That's the term that we are using. So and the MLOps community in June will be in the ThoughtWorks office, and will be only women presenters. We will then later also help out with the conference basically on the day after. Big shout out to Larissa, and I hope I pronounce her name correctly, Vizengerieva. She's the organizer of the Women in Data and AI, and it's just great to see what she make out of this conference, and I'm very much excited to be part of it as well.
Awesome. So we'll add the details in with the episode. So that's June 29th in Berlin at the ThoughtWorks ThoughtWorks office. fantastic. Community is invaluable. Where would you say someone who's not in data and really wants to get into it, maybe they're in a tech company and they want to take the first steps to being involved in the community, what would you advise?
Yeah, I mean, there are so many meetups going on in Berlin, and there is always new opportunities appearing. I mean, one thing I also want to shout out, another event that I'm also organizing is the PyCompy Data. Is happening on the 15th of August. Sorry, not August, 15th of April. Yeah. I'm also organizing it. So there are some, this I was kind of nudged by a friend, Theodore, also my colleague, and to join the organization team. So you can give there are so many things going on. So in my sphere, there is MLOps community, there is PyCompy Data, there is Woman and Data and AI. So I would highly recommend just get involved into one and listen from people, get some advice, and try things on your own. Things are getting easier over time as well. Yeah. So tooling and so on. Now there is this huge thing happening with large language models, and it's another entry point. Like it was for me with MLOps, very in the early days. Here is the very early days of a new kind of cultural change in organizations. So it's very easy to get started.
Yeah, absolutely. All about community here at Zoom as well. So yeah, we'll put the Pi data in there as well. That'll be in 2 weeks' time after this is released. What about internally? So you're in a company, you're not in the data function, but you want to be part of it. How can you get closer to being involved?
Yeah, excellent question. I mean, I started GetYourGuide as a backend engineer in the search domain with PHP, and eventually transitioned it to the ranking recommendations team, showing interest, and then started the ML platform initiative. So I think what was very important is to get your allies. Like you should have great mentors along the way. My manager, Mathieu Bastien, for instance, has the kind of very strategic thinking and looking long term, and that was why it was possible for us to kind of create this machine learning platform in the first place. Yeah. So establish these relationships that are long term, and also like working with a peer that complements your skill set. So in the ML platform, also working with Theo. So I would say build relationships, continuously show that you are interested and engaged, and that you are pursuing this path. Nevertheless, on your own, pet projects help, and so on. Open source helps a lot. So I think, it takes a little bit of engagement, and talking to your peers, and your manager should also be supportive. But over time, you may get this transition.
The data domain is getting ever more powerful, if we like. There's more and more value being driven, and there's a lot of roads to entry. The rise of MLOps, maybe DevOps could start exploring MLOps. Data product manager, we've mentioned data products more and more. They're going to become more and more important to companies. What traits, so you've mentioned curious and driven to learn, but what other traits do you think are specific to people in data that helps them succeed?
Excellent question. I mean, I think it takes a lot of persistence, but I wouldn't say that's also specific to data. I mean, I feel that you can enter this domain from very many angles. Of course, if you have like strengths on analytics, that will be your strength, and you can extract a lot of value from that. I think my strength was some sort of also like this seeing things through systems and how to bring back to the world of machine learning. And so I think most people can just play with their strengths. They just have to basically double down on them and see how that fits with the data domain. How can you make your contribution?
Yeah, awesome. And data driven is thrown around a lot. Is it important to be data driven or just passionate and curious?
Oh, of course, it's also important to have the data to back your decisions, but I mean, not all the time. You don't have data all the time, so it's also fine sometimes to do judgments for only the confidence of this being the best direction long term. A lot of decisions on software engineering are basically driven through, in architecture at least, driven through that. And so I think that depends on the problem. You can apply more and less data. Also, the data scarcity is a big topic. But if you have it, for sure use it to back your arguments. If you don't have it, it's also not the end of the world. You can drive a lot with just like thinking and getting feedback from your peers.
Awesome. I mean, it's an area with a lot of excitement. ML, AI, chat GTP, obviously playing a big part of that. Generative AI scared and excited me personally, but
Yes.
it's a great thing to be involved in. How can we use things like large language models to kind of ride the excitement wave and get as many people into data?
Yeah, I mean, it's very simple nowadays to just go to OpenAI website and try things out. You can use it for very many sorts of things, and in like personal life, in work, in any sort of dimension. Summarization of content is very good. And so, I mean, I think curiosity again, like explore it from different angles, talk to people what they are doing. There's a lot of stuff going on in GetYourGuide right now, and you every day you can learn from your peers in these things. And so I would say just get started, ask some questions, and every problem you have to tackle, you could think, oh, how this could kind of be eased through the use of these tools. Of course, you cannot blindly trust these tools. There is a lot of another opportunities you can see as opportunities, like around this area, like how to basically moderate content that these language models will generate, how to make sure that I mean, you can fit the bill with this as an organization with this, and how can this be done open source and so on. So I mean, there is so many opportunities that if people, it's indeed a great place to get started into data nowadays, and need to change things very kind of fundamentally, I believe.
Do you think there'll be an influx of people getting into data? It's publicity like not seen before.
Well, I hope so, but that will be a positive outcome for sure. And it's definitely easier, especially if you already come from a technical background. It's just like easy to get started, and people will try it out. And I hope though that people don't only stop on the surface, because it's a very deep topic. It's easy to get started, but you need to keep engaging to basically make sure that all the risks are assessed.
Yeah, there's very, very deep. You can get lost in many, many rabbit holes, and we could even continue talking for many hours in that topic in particular. But that's all we have time for today. Really enjoyable conversation, John. Thank you very much
Likewise.
for your time.
thank you for and doing this with me. It was a real pleasure, and looking forward to the next episodes. Also, super interesting podcast. Please keep doing this. It's great to see that Berlin has such a great initiative. So
thank you, and yeah, hopefully we'll be seeing you at a couple of the conferences and meetups. We've got Pi Data and obviously Women in Data as well. They're going to be fantastic. We'll share the links and how to get involved there. When it comes to the podcast, please drop your feedback as always, and don't forget to like and share so we can reach as many people as possible. But it's bye from us. Thanks once again, John.
thank you, Matt. Have a nice day.
Ciao for now.
Ciao.